It was here that the grandfather really felt lonely and told her a lot about his desires for his granddaughter. It turned out that Chinda felt much the same way. She really liked old-looking men too. So when one night his grandfather walked into her room and started touching her, she didn't resist, even pulling his hand to touch other sensitive parts. This was something they both probably wanted all along. Moreover, her grandmother was still hospitalized, so they did this despicable thing even more often. Not only in the bedroom, but in the kitchen, back porch, even the bathroom. All styles are played, with the most important thing being that the couple can feel the immense satisfaction that her body has been craving for. Hey there! Welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving into another chilling real-life event that reminds us just how strange and unsettling our world can be. This time, the story takes us to the Solavan region in Laos, where a truly mind-boggling case unfolds. It's about a grandfather whose actions crossed every imaginable line, something you'd never want to see as an example for anyone. What exactly happened in this shocking case? Stick around, because we're about to unpack the full story and explore it in depth. Let's get into it. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and share this story with your friends. It helps us keep bringing you these tales. So, here's the story. In the city of Solavan, Laos, there was a beautiful woman named Phylin, born in 1948. Life seemed to take a traditional path when, in 1969, her parents arranged her marriage to a soldier. At the time, Phylin worked as a nurse. But the marriage didn't last long. Her husband had multiple wives scattered across the towns where he was stationed. By 1971, Phylin was divorced, left deeply hurt and traumatized by her experience with men. Despite her heartbreak, life had other plans. She met Fing, a charming and smooth-talking man, who swept her off her feet. Though he was 5 years younger than her, Phylin fell head over heels for his gentlemanly ways. They got married in 1973. She was 25, and he was just 20. In 1974, the couple welcomed their first child, followed by their second in 1977, a daughter named Savone. As the years passed, Savone grew up to be a rebellious young woman. At 20, she left home for Paxi, only to find herself pregnant and unmarried. In 1994, she gave birth to a daughter, Chinda, and worked tirelessly to make ends meet as a single mom. Chinda's teenage years were far from smooth. She clashed constantly with her mother, often fighting about money and their strained relationship. In 2011, Chinda decided to reconnect with her grandparents, Phylin and Fing, in Solavan. While she managed to meet them, her mother, Savone, soon found out and was furious. Harboring feelings of abandonment from her parents, Savone took Chinda back to Paxi, refusing to reconcile with her family despite their efforts to make amends. Fast forward to 2014, and Savone found love again. She dreamed of building a proper family with her new partner. But there was one issue: her boyfriend didn't want Chinda in the picture. He wanted a life that felt like a fresh start, free of the complications that came with having a grown child. Torn between her daughter and her dreams, Savone made a difficult decision. She chose to prioritize her relationship and asked Chinda to move out. Understanding her mother's longing for a stable, happy life, Chinda stepped aside. She took a job as a waitress at a nightclub in Paxi to support herself. During this time, she caught the attention of Vaung, a wealthy 49-year-old widower and businessman who ran a tissue supply company. Vaung became a regular at the nightclub, and their romance blossomed. Known for spoiling the women he adored, Vaung showered Chinda with gifts and affection, fueling a whirlwind relationship that carried on for months. In 2015, Chinda discovered something that shattered her world. Her boss at the club, Samphone, had been sleeping with her boyfriend, Vaung. This revelation was a devastating blow for Chinda, who had believed their relationship was serious. She had even talked about marriage and was making plans to meet Vaung's parents out of town. What made it worse? Samphone didn't even bother to apologize or acknowledge what she'd done. As Chinda saw it, her boss clearly felt no remorse, likely because of her position of authority. And yet, Vaung, the man Chinda had trusted, begged for forgiveness. He promised to fix things, saying he didn't want their future plans to fall apart. Against her better judgment, Chinder forgave him. She reasoned that letting him go would be a loss. Despite his age, Vaung was still attractive, wealthy, and strong. If they got married, she thought, she wouldn't have to work hard anymore. Soon after, he bought her an expensive engagement ring, and their relationship seemed to be back on track. But just 2 months later, Chinder's world crumbled again. A friend tipped her off that Vaung was still seeing Samphone. Determined to know the truth, Chinder investigated and followed him in October 2015 to a small hotel on the outskirts of Paxi. There, she caught them red-handed. Vaung and Samphone were together in a room, naked. Instead of panicking or feeling ashamed, they smiled at her, even inviting her to join them if she wanted. Enraged, Chinder slapped Samphone, but the two of them only laughed, as if being caught was a joke. Humiliated and heartbroken, Chinder went home in tears, hoping that Vaung would come to apologize. But days turned into weeks, and Vaung never showed up. Chinder clung to the hope that he would return, not just because she loved him, but because she had sacrificed so much, including her chastity, for him. She also struggled to let go of the financial stability he represented, with all his wealth in land, shophouses, and investments. Finally, unable to endure the uncertainty, Chinder called Vaung to demand clarity. She asked him to choose, her or Samphone. His answer crushed her. He chose Samphone, saying that her skills in bed were far superior and that, while Chinder might be beautiful, she lacked passion. Devastated, Chinder had no choice but to accept that her dream of becoming Vaung's wife, and living a life of luxury, was over. It took her months to process the heartbreak and move on. By May 2016, feeling like Paxi held nothing but pain for her, Chinder fled to Solavan City to stay with her grandparents, Phylon and Phing. They welcomed her into their modest home, living off a pension and occasional financial help from their youngest child, Chinder's uncle Kimla, who lived in Paksong. Though life with her grandparents was far from glamorous, it offered a sense of safety and family that Chinder desperately needed to start healing from her tumultuous past. To keep it simple, life at her grandparents' house wasn't exactly thrilling for Chinder. There wasn't much to do, and she didn't really know anyone in the area. Socializing or going out just wasn't an option. Her grandparents, Phylon and Phing, went to bed super early. By 8 p.m., the house was silent. But in a way, this quiet life was exactly what she needed. It was an escape from the chaos and heartbreak she had left behind. It was the one place where she felt truly accepted for who she was. She didn't have to work hard to eat, and her grandmother adored her. Phylon would even sneak her a little money now and then, encouraging her to buy snacks or clothes. Chinder didn't feel like shopping, though. Instead, she started learning to cook and help out with household chores. After a year of settling into this slower pace, Chinder took a job at a nearby skincare shop. It wasn't much, but it gave her something to do and broke up the monotony of staying home all the time. Locals and relatives often praised her grandparents, describing Phylon and Phing as kind, respectable people in the community. It filled Chinder with pride whenever someone referred to her as their granddaughter. However, there was always the awkward topic of her biological father. Whenever people asked about him, Chinder brushed it off with vague answers, saying he'd passed away, run off, or something similar, just to avoid the discussion. Even she didn't know who he was, and her mother hadn't shared any details. Then came a shocking night in September 2018. A friend invited Chinder to a birthday party at a hotel. While she was there, she spotted her grandfather, Mr. Phing, at the reception desk, with a young, sexy entertainer. Shocked, she confronted him right then and there. Her grandfather, visibly startled, admitted that he had been renting hotel rooms and hiring women for a while now. He explained, almost defensively, that it had been years since her grandmother could meet his physical needs. Pleading with her not to say a word to anyone, especially her grandmother, Phing begged for her silence. He was embarrassed and feared it would cause a huge fight at home. After the confrontation, he continued with his evening, and Chinder returned to the party. Back at home, though, things felt strained. For days, they barely spoke to each other. Chinda was deeply annoyed by his behavior and felt it was a waste of money. At the same time, she couldn't help but pity her grandparents. Her grandmother was frail, suffering from gout and diabetes, and even the simplest movements required assistance. She was far too weak to do much, let alone fulfill any marital obligations. Meanwhile, her grandfather, though aging, seemed to have desires that just wouldn't fade. It was a sad, complicated situation, and Chinda found herself torn between frustration and sympathy. By March 2020, the pandemic had struck, and life for Chinda and her family took a drastic turn. Her grandmother, Phylin, contracted the virus and was admitted to the Sullivan City Hospital, where she was quarantined for treatment. Things became even more challenging when the skincare shop where Chinda worked shut down indefinitely due to the lockdown. Her grandfather, Fing, also had to put his extracurricular activities on pause. Hotels had closed, and strict social distancing rules made his usual escapades impossible. The family was stuck at home, and boredom from the lockdown soon began to creep in. Chinda tried selling skincare products online to keep herself busy, but sales were minimal. As the weeks turned into months, Fing began confiding in Chinda, revealing his deep loneliness and unfulfilled desires. Shockingly, Chinda found herself empathizing with him. She admitted to having her own complicated feelings about older men. One evening, when her grandfather crossed a line by entering her room and touching her, Chinda didn't resist. Instead, she reciprocated, leading them both into an unspeakable relationship. With her grandmother still in the hospital, their illicit affair continued to escalate. They took advantage of every private moment, indulging in their desires without fear of being caught. For almost 7 months, their secret relationship thrived. However, the situation grew even darker when Phylin's health deteriorated. Her youngest son, Kimla, came to Sullivan to help care for her, forcing Fing and Chinda to temporarily put their plans on hold. To their dismay, Phylin's condition improved, and by November 2020, she was discharged and returned home. The family dynamic became complicated, especially with Kimla staying in Sullivan for several months while waiting for his workplace to reopen. It wasn't until May 2021 that he finally returned to Paksong, leaving the household under less scrutiny. But on June 14, 2021, tragedy struck. Kimla received a call informing him that his mother, Phylin, had passed away due to complications from her illness. Rushing back to Sullivan, he arrived just in time to see her body in the hospital. However, something seemed off. There were faint marks around her neck that looked like signs of strangulation. The unusual findings raised suspicions with the attending doctor, who reported them to the authorities. An investigation was launched, and it didn't take long for the hospital to confirm that her death wasn't caused by diabetes or gout. Instead, it was determined that the 72-year-old had been strangled. Long story short, a few days later, officers arrested Mr. Fing on suspicion of intentionally harming his wife. The investigation uncovered some damning evidence. His DNA was the only one found on Phylin's clothes and body, including her neck. At first, he denied everything, claiming he had no idea what had happened. But when authorities searched the family home, they found a small rope, allegedly used to take Phylin's life, with only Mr. Fing's fingerprints on it. Cornered by the evidence, this grandfather of 4 finally confessed. He admitted he killed his wife because he saw her as a burden, useless and just getting in the way. According to him, she couldn't even take care of herself, let alone him. It didn't stop there. Mr. Fing had apparently been planning to run away with his granddaughter Chinda to start a new life out of town. To make things worse, he was eyeing his wife's life insurance payout as part of the plan. Chinda, who was deeply loved by her grandmother, ended up being arrested too. She was accused of helping plan the murder. The betrayal was shocking. How could she conspire against the woman who loved her so much? Once arrested, both Mr. Fing and Chinda started pointing fingers at each other, each claiming they'd been tricked or seduced by the other. Their lawyer came up with a desperate defense, spinning a new story that was clearly fabricated. He claimed they were simply defending themselves after being caught making out by Mrs. Phylin, who allegedly attacked them with a sharp weapon. In this twisted version, they accidentally killed her while trying to protect themselves. The judge and prosecutor didn't buy the story for a second, but they let the lawyer have his say. On December 18, 2021, at the Sullivan District Court, the verdict was in. Both Mr. Feng and Chinda were found guilty of murder and conspiracy. They were sentenced to 25 years in prison, each for first-degree felony charges. Chinda's mother, Savone, was present at the trial, furious at her daughter's actions. But many netizens blamed Savone too, accusing her of neglecting Chinda during her childhood, being too focused on remarrying, and leaving her child to fend for herself while she built a new life with her new husband. What lessons can we learn from this story?